All right, we are ready to begin tonight's meeting. Calling to order the Omani City School District Board of Education meeting for March 13th, Monday, starting at 5:05 p.m. Welcome for everyone who is able to attend today. We have some items of interest and honoring Clemson School that we will get to in a minute. Before we begin, we will start with roll call, starting with Ms. Cobian.
Present.
Ms. Flores.
Present.
Okay, Ms. Rivas is not here today. Next, we have Mr. Segrist.
Present.
And Mendez Garcia present. Okay, we will now stand for the flag salute. Okay. Put your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin today's board meeting with our first item of interest, which is our Norwood repurposing project on regarding community engagement.
Thank you, President Mendez Garcia, and good evening, board members. This evening, we begin a presentation. As you know, Norwood is one of our beloved schools that closed a long time ago, and it's had many uses and purposes throughout the years. And so we have, in the last few years, we finally have taken the necessary steps to engage our school community to discuss what are the next steps for Norwood. It's no surprise that this community has been asking for additional green space, and so we've partnered with our friends from the Trust Fund Public Land, as well as our friends from Active SGV to help us with the engagement. And it is my pleasure this evening to introduce Cristina Davila, who will kick off this presentation and share the latest with the Norwood project.
Hi, everyone, members of the board, cabinet, and colleagues. Excited to see a bigger audience here today, so that's great news. I am really excited here to just introduce some of the work that's been going on in terms of community engagement. Just to kind of recap, we were here back in January to talk about our vision for Norwood and how our district has been making investments since 2013 on collecting data to understand what's going on with our children 0 to 5. And so through that data and a lot of discussions, we've been able to pilot a lot of programming, but another, thinking about more long-term projects, right? We've been able to start thinking about what we envision Norwood being for this community, a hub for children 0 to 5, so that parents have an opportunity to, our district has the opportunity to open its doors to parents with young children, even before they start the formal schooling system, so that there are connections and access to resources that are much needed in this stage of their lives, and so that children have an opportunity to explore and play in a safe and welcoming environment. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Madeleine from Active SGV that's going to be going over some of the data. They've been engaging in a lot of community engagement activities, and here are the results of that work.
Cool. Thank you, Cristina, and good evening, everyone. Board, thanks for having us and allowing me to give you a project update on Norwood Elementary. So I believe Cristina already shared some background on Norwood Elementary and the importance for children 0 to 5 here in the city of El Monte. I will provide some information and some background that you might have heard from the last time we were here in October regarding the LINK initiative. This is an initiative happening in different communities across LA County. Here in the San Gabriel Valley, Active San Gabriel Valley, in partnership with Trust for Public Land, are working to build capacity in this community to leverage funding so we can create multi-sector partnerships as well as multi-benefit projects. One of the projects being the Norwood Greening Project. This process ensures that parents and residents have a voice in the decision-making process and that funding meets the needs of children and families. So through this LINK process, our outreach took place a few years ago. We were out in the community surveying folks. This was during the height of the pandemic, so we included different outreach methods as well as in-person once that became available to us. And we were able to identify multiple community priorities here in the city of El Monte. These included public access, greening, and recreational amenities, specifically at Norwood Elementary. And it just so happened that concurrently, the school district has been working with stakeholders to plan the future for the Norwood campus as well. So what we know about Norwood Elementary is approximately 6 acres of a former school site. It has been closed since 2010, and it's currently being used by the local softball youth as there is a joint use agreement. Something else that we know is that nearly 6,900 people live within a 10-minute walking distance from Norwood Elementary, 25% of which are children under the age of 20. There are no other public green spaces within a half mile, as you can see here in this map. The little green polygons are the only green spaces, so it's really important to add additional spaces, green spaces, where possible.
And if I can just interject, I mean, a lot of those spaces are El Monte City School District properties. And so it really speaks to the importance of utilizing our spaces as green spaces in partnership with the community. You know, and there's a lot that entails onto itself.
Yes, thanks for that. So, as mentioned, we did conduct community outreach. Through the Link Initiative, we were at different events, meeting people where they are. So this included farmers markets, resource fairs, family fun days at local parks, and we were able to connect with 1,200 community members, collect 500 surveys and 100 youth surveys. We were definitely engaging with the youth as well, making sure that they're providing input on the things that they would like to see and would like to use at a space, a green space in their community. Our team also posted on social media. We sent out direct mailers to residents in the city of El Monte, along with numerous text banking campaigns, and of course, the online interactive mapping survey, where we were able to get 100 responses, and that online interactive mapping survey was due to the COVID pandemic and ensuring that community members can still provide input and tell us what they would like to see. The Norwood Elementary School site arose as a priority for a new park with shade trees, active play equipment, and recreational sports fields. And so we came to this concept plan, which includes proposed improvements, such as keeping, first of all, the softball fields. That's a community asset, and they will remain. And also the primary buildings of the school site. There will be the removal of one temporary building, a parking lot, and just reduce the main parking lot area. Adding walkways is definitely a key feature of this plan. Adding a playground, edible gardens, trees, and landscaping. And finally, this site will also serve as a stormwater capture system where water will be captured from the surrounding streets in order to cleanse, infiltrate on site, and recharge our underground aquifers. So, Active SGV, we've been able to conduct the outreach for this project due to a grant that we were awarded through RMC Prop 68. And the outreach that we've been doing has been specifically to refine the concept plan for the Norwood site.
Marlene, do you mind? I know there's a lot of people in our audience, and there's acronyms, and we love our acronyms. So I just want to call out RMC, the Rivers Mountain Conservancy.
I apologize for that.
That's okay.
RMC is the Rivers Mountains Conservancy.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, and so through this grant, we've been able to conduct community outreach. One of the methods of outreach has been doing community presentations. We were here in fall of 2022. We were also able to present to the key communicators, a very, very important group of parents that provided a lot of feedback and comments, and so we're really grateful to them. We're also able to present at the District English Learner Advisory Committee and at the Head Start Policy Committee, and we're looking to plan for a last presentation this month in March. Our team has also been doing hosting community pop-ups. We've been at the Children's Day Parade. We've hosted a pop-up at the Jeff Seymour Family Center at different school sites, including Durfee School, Cherry Lee School, and Wright Elementary. We were also at the Love at First Spark event at Fletcher Park, and we hosted 3 pop-ups at the Norwood Elementary site. And at these pop-ups, we're looking to collect feedback from the community that was conducted through a survey was a quick 11-question survey. And then during the second phase of our outreach, we were able to have the actual design boards, which I will share with you all, and show you the numbers and what people prefer to see at the school site. Our team also hosted 3 community workshops at Norwood Elementary. And so this was the first workshop that we hosted back in November of 2022. We had 40 attendees, and in anticipation of this event, our team was out in the community canvassing and inviting residents to the event. We also did text banking campaigns, and we sent out a mailer to everyone living within a 0.5-mile radius, as well as social media posts. During the presentation, during the workshop, we gave a presentation, and then we were able to break out in small breakout groups where community members were able to discuss amongst themselves and with a staff member from Active SGV and Trust for Public Land, provide feedback, and we would know all the comments that they were making, and to ensure that we were capturing that as well. And some of the highlights and recommendations from the community was to ensure that there were walkways in the school site and that they were wide enough to accommodate people walking in both directions, as well as having dedicated park hours. That's important to the community. Traffic calming measures, especially since there's so many people, I think I said close to 7,000, that live within a walking distance of the park. So those were definitely some of the priorities shared during that first workshop. Our second workshop took place earlier this year. Similar to our first workshop, we canvassed almost 700 homes, inviting residents to the event. We also collected surveys, sent out text messages, mailers, social media. This second workshop looked a little different from our first one. We were able to style it kind of as an open house where the 6 design boards were presented to the community, and we gave them the opportunity to vote on the 3 elements that they would like to see in the space. So that proved to be very successful, and at each table, there was staff members from Active SGV as well as Trust for Public Land answering any questions, capturing additional comments, and feedback from the community. Our last workshop did have to pivot to Zoom due to the rain and hail that we had in late February and early this month. So we did canvass a few less homes, but we still sent out the text banking campaigns, the mailers, notifying everyone of the shift, as well as posting posters at the school site, just letting everyone know in case they did stop by. But we did have 18 attendees, which was really great. We were able to present them with all the outreach that we've been doing, the plan, and where we're currently at, and where we want to be in the coming months with this project. I also want to note here that our project website is active and will remain active. Through the website, we've been able to collect more than 340 surveys in 4 different languages. So the online survey is currently closed, but the website definitely proved an asset in collecting feedback from the community. And now I will share a little bit of the summary from the feedback on the 6 design boards. Here are the first 2. The first one is the play elements. As we can see, there was popularity among the high elevation playgrounds. Probably has something to do with going up and down the slides for kids, which should be really fun for them. There was also the natural materials, which was really popular, as well as the play for multiple ages. The community really feels that needs to be highlighted. Additionally, for community spaces, walking, having nature walks is really important, as well as having gathering spaces for community to just get together and shade. For the next 2 boards, fitness and health and recreation, walking paths, again, very, very important to the community and definitely highlighted here. Having group exercise equipment was also popular, and gardening. There was also a board for art and cultural representation. Cultural references in the play is desired by the community, as well as murals on the ground and sculptured art throughout the site. And the last 2 design boards, the landscape, low waste use was very popular. We can see trees and edible plants as well. And then for our last board, we had security cameras as being a priority for the community, as well as lighting. And lighting was definitely a safety measure that we heard a lot in the small breakout groups during that first workshop, as well as having a decorative entry gate. So again, here, there's just a summary of the overall priorities from all the boards. So elevation changes, cultural references, security cameras, natural walks, murals on the ground, low water use, as well as natural materials, lighting, trees, walking paths, decorative entry gates, and edible plants. And just some of the comments that we heard from all the outreach and conversations we were having. So public access to the site was definitely something that came up, as well as programming. Community and family event spaces, a skate park came up, playgrounds, very popular. Reuse of the buildings, people want to know what will happen with the buildings, so that was really important for the community, as well as safety, security, solar power, fitness equipment, and then also comments about having inclusive play for children with special needs. So the cost for this project is approximately $10 million, 9.8 to be exact. And there is a proposal that was submitted to the LA County Safe Clean Water Program, Measure W, which has been recommended for the full amount. So we're hoping to hear about that in the coming months by summer of 2023. And here's the timeline. So our community engagement is going to be wrapping up at the end of this month. We have been outreaching and speaking with community members for the past 6 months, and this has included meeting with parent groups, hosting numerous pop-ups at Norwood and at different school sites and throughout the city, as well as collecting feedback through the surveys, the design boards, and of course capturing the notes, the comments and feedback that community members provided during the workshops. We are going to be waiting for the funding. It has been recommended, so we should know by summer of 2023. And once awarded, we will be able to move forward with the design and construction, which should take between 3 to 5 years. So the next steps, just to wait for the money to come in, secure that project funding, and then we can move forward with hiring a design team to develop the construction documents. And if you have any questions or need to follow up, this is the information for our project manager at Trust for Public Land and our executive director's information as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, just really well put together. And then it was great to see the different measures that you did for community outreach, and then even being able to say like how many posts and then how many actually viewed the post. And even though it was raining, being able to pivot to then do a Zoom option, right? And then the survey online, so you can really tell that you put a lot of effort and thought into the different ways you can gain input into this project. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll this time I open up to the board if you have any questions. Mr. Segrist?
Just a comment. I really like that idea of having some security through cameras monitoring what's happening. I've never heard of anybody ever doing that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and the community seemed to want that feature as well.
I love it.
I think the majority of the city parks now have cameras that the PD can connect to. So it's a trend that we're starting to see more and more in open spaces, but I think it's an added security benefit, and definitely there's an interest in our school community to see that type of investment as well. And I just want to acknowledge Marlene. I know she stepped in to do this presentation, but just working with this team has been extraordinary. I also want to recognize Mr. David Diaz, who's also in the audience. This has been a conversation that we've been having for many, many years, right? How we repurpose a space that's so beloved and dear to our school community. And we have to do right by our families, right? These are spaces that once belonged to kids and families. And, you know, I know that there's a lot of options, including housing and a lot of needs, I should say. But really, when you think about the needs of the school community and how important green space is, and how many of our families need to drive out to receive, services for their 0 to 5 children. And so to be able to offer this as part of our school system, a safe space. And I will say that many, many years ago, when the county was embarking on this project to really understand the needs of the green spaces that were needed, I attended some of the local meetings, and I was very touched by some of the younger kids because, the skate park was really popular, and there was a lot, basketball courts, and people wanted to see more fields. But there was this group of kids that were there, and they said, there's a pecking order at parks. Little kids get pushed out of, the courts, and the older kids and adults tend to, be given these spaces. And so when we started talking about opportunities with Norwood, it was, no, this is for our children, right? And so, of course, it's going to be an open space for families, but to prioritize the needs of kids, 0 to 5 in particular, and then the school-age children, I think is really exciting. And it'll be an opportunity for us to make sure that they get this well-balanced, opportunity and experience as part of the El Monte City School District. So really excited. I think having made it this far in the application process is very promising. And so as we await, I think we can really start to celebrate the opportunities that we see before us.
Yes, agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our California Distinguished School, Clemenston.
Well, in the spirit of celebrations, we're just going to continue the celebratory news here. It's really my pleasure to formally announce and recognize and thank on behalf of the school district at Clemenston School for their three-peat California Distinguished School. And as you know, our schools have been a beacon in our community, all of our schools serve that role. Clemenston, in particular, has a very long history in the school district. It was built in the late 1930s. Originally, some of the school designs like Potrero and Cherry Lee are very similar to Clemenston. They were all built around the same time. And despite being one of the oldest schools in the district, really, Clemenston has stood the test of time and continues to be a pillar of excellence in our district, always setting the bar, and especially over the last few years. In 2021, like all of our schools, Clemenston earned a Pivotal Practice Award from the California Department of Education for their use of technology and for keeping students engaged and connected throughout the pandemic. And it was no surprise. There was no difference in what we were seeing on the screens and when you see in person, because I can attest firsthand, I see it every time I visit the school, an extraordinary group of educators that always goes above and beyond, no matter what time of the day it is, no matter what day of the week it is. In 2022, they were also named a Best Elementary School by U.S. News and World Report. And also with us this evening, just to continue celebrating all the wonderful things happening at Clemenston, is teacher Priscilla Stratus, who was honored at the Bobby Salcedo Esperanza Award recipient at the 2022 Tamalada, no surprise, from Clemenston School. So at this time, I'd like to invite the principal of Clemenston, Mr. Carlos Salcedo, if he can please come on up so he can introduce his staff to the board and to officially recognize once again the 2023 California Distinguished School Award. And it goes, I think it just merits another time saying that it's the third time the school has received this award. So congratulations, Clemenston. A proud parent.
Good evening, Dr. Garcia, cabinet members, President Mendez Garcia, and Board of Trustees. As the proud principal of Clemenston School, it's an honor to stand here before you tonight. I was reminded earlier that today is the third anniversary of, let's just say March 13th, right? But this is a much more festive reason, so it gives me great pleasure to be here today. As you know, being recognized as a California Distinguished School is a huge honor. And this award really validates our family's strong commitment and partnership in education, our students' work in the classroom, and the dedication from our certificated and classified staff. This trinity has produced 3 California Distinguished School Awards in a row. And to be honest, if we're missing just one of those pieces, this award doesn't happen. So it's really important to always recognize and honor all of those pieces. So with your permission, I'd like to introduce the staff that's here tonight, okay, and parents. Okay. So we're going to start with a very special person whose fingerprints are all over this award. Teresa Billings retired last year. As you can see, she looks so young and so much happier. But we are very happy that she's here with us today, celebrating with the rest of her colleagues. So thank you so much. We also have our community liaison, Milagros Monroy, our TK teacher, Rosalba Perez, our first grade teacher, Joyce Chow, second grade teacher, Dana Anderson, second grade teacher, Lori Delgado, third grade teacher, Priscilla Stratus, fourth grade teacher, Corinne Wilson, sixth grade teacher, Sarah Hernandez, and we also have with us today at Inclusion ISS, Linda Elias. Yes. And of course, parent Laura Ruiz. So thank you for being here. We also have our SAIL teacher, Anna Monette, with us tonight. I didn't miss anybody, right? Okay, good. But with that, we just want to thank you. It does mean a lot to be recognized by the school board, not only for doing this 3 times in a row, but the staff is really super dedicated. Our students produce work that's out of this world. And again, where would we be without our parents? We are a beacon in our community. You know, being a distinguished school just gives us a little bit of bragging rights in Temple City. So just to say that we are the only school in Temple City that is a California Distinguished School. So with that, Dr. Garcia, President Mendez Garcia, thank you so much for having us here tonight. Really.
Mr. Salcedo and a few of his team members were able to recently celebrate this recognition with the State Department of Education, and they received some tokens. I believe we brought the artifacts, Mr. Salcedo?
Yes.
I'd like to invite the board to please step forward in front of the dais. We're going to take a group picture, and I'd like to invite the Clements and staff to please join us so we can continue celebrating. And Mr. Salcedo has quite a few events planned out at the school to continue celebrating throughout the year and recognizing the students, the staff, and the parents.
Tentatively, April 5th or the 19th. We're still kind of playing with it with Jenny Lee. So hopefully we'll get that nailed down this week and we can forward some invitations.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Dasmati,
Come on
do your
up.
magic.
Rosalba needs to move forward. Rosalba needs to move forward. She's hiding behind the flag. There you go. There you go.
A little closer.
Robert, you might need to do a chair kind of angle down.
Yeah, I think we're all right. Just think of it this way. If you can't see this, I can't see you. So I tell the kids, here we go. 1,
And then just once again, on behalf of the board, congratulations, Clemenson. It's just a real testament to the hard work that you're doing to support our students, to make sure that they are ready for high school and then to be college and career ready. So thank you on behalf of the board.
Madam President, may I give a little history? I have a special bond with Clemenson. In 1972, I had a student named Xochitl Gonzalez. She's now Xochitl Gonzalez Clemenson. She married into the Clemenson family. And I was at the presentation at the Historical Society, and a member of the Clemenson family came, this is years ago, and gave a really good overview of what the area was like when the Clemensons came here. So congratulations to all of you for your well-deserved award.
Okay, we'll be moving on to our communication section of our agenda. Dr. Garcia, do we have any public or written comments, communications?
No public comment or written comment has come forward.
Okay, we're going to move on to cabinet reports.
Thank you, President Mendez Garcia. This evening, once again, we have prepared for you a presentation that highlights many of the wonderful things happening throughout the district, as well as just the state of the economy and things that are happening throughout the state and the nation. And it is my pleasure to kick off the presentation with a picture that's shortly going to be loaded that celebrates our recent tech fair. And I know that many of you were able to attend and just see it firsthand, but I have to just say, like, we were here, we were in this room, and it was just a celebration of all good things happening in the El Monte City School District. And so I do want to acknowledge, I know some of our teachers that are here with us this evening. We're also here for the tech fair. Really, it was just this labor of love. And what you see there before you is students posing with their wearable art. This was the first year that we hosted the wearable art, and I know that Dr. Pinedo is going to share a little bit more details as we get into our presentations. So in the next slide, we have just a quick overview of some of the things that we'll be sharing, business services, education services, personnel, and then I'll wrap up with some updates myself. I'll turn it over to Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Just a quick update on the finances at the state level. As you know, the health of our school budget here in El Monte City School District is dependent largely on the state economy, and so revenues continue to track much lower than expected. Governor Newsom came out with a January proposal back in mid-January, and we are already more than $3 billion below those revenue projections. And so there was a projection that came out from the Legislative Analyst's Office a few weeks ago that was estimating there was an 80% chance that we would be $5 billion or more below that. So it looks like we're tracking that. If the financial trend continues, unfortunately, it won't be the best of news for public education. Governor Newsom can declare a budget emergency, and that would allow for funds to be withdrawn from the state rainy day fund. We hope we don't get to that point, but that is a possibility that the governor has at his discretion. Another proposal or an option could be scaled back the investments in public education. That's something that actually the Legislative Analyst's Office was recommending to the legislator, that they scale back ELOT funding, reduce the COLA for next year. So we're monitoring that closely so we can see what the impact is for our budget as we go into the next fiscal year.
And I know in the coming week, several of you have signed up to participate with the CSBA and their legislative efforts. And so we do have some speaking points that we can share with the board that will convey the importance of funding education, to fully funding education. As we see the economy evolving, it's very important that the commitment that has been made in the years past is still enforced, and that school districts receive their fair share of the local control funding formula and fully fund it. So I'll be sharing more information with the board at the end of our meeting.
And as we turn our attention to tax revenues, and on that topic, due to the winter storms, the IRS came out with some guidance recently and then revised the guidance again. They pushed the deadline back from April to May, now to October. Great news for taxpayers and businesses, but it does complicate the governor's ability to forecast revenues for the upcoming year. The reason the May revise comes out in May is because we could typically collect taxes in April. So we see, we get one last look at what the tax revenue was before the May revision comes out and the budget gets adopted in June. So he's really going to be having to look into that crystal ball to figure out what the projections are going to be for next fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. So when the budget gets adopted in June each year, The state is really forecasting what they think their revenues are going to be for the next 12 months. And because the tax date has been pushed back, it's going to further complicate the ability to accurately forecast that. So in my estimation, I hope that they're conservative so that we don't get hit with any mid-year cuts. But we'll see that when the May revise comes out in a few months. The tax extension may impact school funding. We saw this back in 2020 when they were proposing a negative 22% COLA and said, you know what, let's just keep the COLA at 0%. And they were hoping and banking on some federal funds to come in mid-year. Luckily, they did come in with some of the stimulus funding that came in from the federal level back in 2020. So it prevented some mid-year deferrals and budget cuts. So we're hoping that's not the case and there's no mid-year budget reductions. The importance of having strong budget reserves at the local level will help to soften any issues or negative revenue projections that happen to materialize if they do so. And our fiscal services team has been hard at work alongside with our HR team to make sure that we get all these documents out to our employees and vendors so that they can file their taxes. And the Jeff Zima Family Center has developed some good partnerships with Day One and Toma here to provide free tax services to our El Monte residents. And as we turn our attention to technology services, we will be awarding a multi-year contract later at this board meeting under the E-rate program to improve our internet speed from 1 gigabyte to 20 gigabytes. We get internet services that come into the district office and then we push it out to different school locations. And so that will allow us to have stronger, more stable internet. It's going to come at a discount, so we get an 85% reduction on our internet bill under the E-rate program. And on a separate note, we purchased some new servers that we're going to deploy this summer at all of our school sites in the district office to make sure that we are operating on the latest and greatest. And most importantly, we hear a lot on the news these days about cybersecurity and data breaches and hacks and things like that. So we're doing our part to make sure that our network is as secure as possible. And as we turn our attention to the upcoming legislative cycle, there is quite a bit of bills that have been introduced at the state level. I just wanted to share some of that information here for the board for them to consider. There's a link there if you're having trouble falling asleep at night. Click on that link. You can see all of the trailer bill language that is being proposed for the upcoming year. We get $250,000 of annual revenue each year under the mandate block grant. And we know that falls well short of the funding schools need to make sure that we are in compliance with the laws. 98% of school districts across the state of California opt into the mandate block grant because if we were to go and seek reimbursement through the state, through the mandated cost reimbursement, there's uncertainty and that is funding that never quite materializes. So we pick the lesser of two evils and take the $250,000 annually of mandate block grant funds to make sure that we're in compliance with all of the laws that are currently in place and will be, I'm sure, passed. I'm sure of those 2,600 laws, a few hundred of those will get signed by Governor Newsom. And with that, I'll turn over to Dr. Pinelo.
Thank you. Last week, was that last week? Just last week, March 3rd, week before last, we had our Parent Involvement Academy over at the Pacific Palms in the City of Industry. We had about 111 parents and staff participate in that, including a few of our board members. Thank you for being there. And the topics covered a lot of things that supported students' academic, behavioral, and social-emotional needs. It was really great to be there with our parents, and we are already planning as an Ed Services team what we are going to present next year at the Parent Involvement Academy. So our team is really excited about that. In addition to the Parent Involvement Academy, we currently have ESL classes taking place at some of our sites. That's a partnership with the high school adult program. We are continuing our second round of Google classes and classes is spelled wrong. There's 4 S's in classes. Sorry about that. And so we are continuing. I need to take a Google class that corrects my grammar, sorry about that. And so the second phase of Google classes takes our parents deeper into understanding how to utilize Google, utilizing Google Docs, email, and so on, collaborating on the various Google platforms. And then in March and April, we will be conducting MTSS parent workshops that cover self-care, preventing substance abuse and risky behaviors, suicide awareness and prevention, navigating inappropriate language and challenging behaviors, and preparing our children for statewide testing, and thinking ahead to college and career. In terms of our expanded learning program, we are adding another school to receive Sauté Academy, the culinary arts, and that's Cortada School. We are adding more schools for our golf, and so Kids Campus and Gidley and Rio Vista are joining that as well. And we're really excited about a contract that's up today in front of the board, and that's for Hey Tutor, which is offers in-person tutoring at each of our school sites. And so what we've asked for is 10 tutors from Hey Tutor to come in. They work in a 4-to-1 ratio, so for every 4 students, there's 1 adult. And what they do is that they will provide a diagnostic assessment for their students that they're working with to get an idea of what areas of support that they need, and then they provide tutoring. They have a curriculum that they provide tutoring for those students in that small group. And that is from the beginning of April to the end of the school year. There is a potential for growing this into a 1-to-1 tutoring if needed at some point, but this is where we are starting out. This also provides for having coordinators to oversee the program as well. In addition to that, we have are flying a position for tutors at our school sites as well for our teachers to participate in tutoring at their school sites, and that would be separate from the Hey Tutor contract that we have. And so we're really excited about this. This is one of the only tutoring agencies that's providing in-person support right now. Most is virtual, and we have found that our community really benefits from the in-person tutoring and support. And so we're excited to bring this to you today. Our Almani Swim started today for our 2nd graders. And so again, they will receive 4 full days of lessons at the Aquatic Center in a partnership with our Parks and Rec. And then during spring break, we're really excited. We already have over 600 registrations to date for our enrichment camp. That'll be Monday through Friday, the week after Easter. We're providing a specialized menu. A big thank you to our nutrition services. The students will get breakfast, lunch, and a supper snack. And the lunches will include Domino's, Subway, and Panda Express. And in terms of programming, there will be outdoor recreation, kids play sports. We'll have art and wind tree programming going on. And then our study trips will be to the Cheech Museum, whale watching, the California Science Center, Travel Town, and the Griffith Park Zoo hiking trail.
All right, so as of this morning, I thought it'd be one of the first cabinet updates without a COVID update, and then our Los Angeles County Department of Public Health went ahead and adopted some updated protocols as of today. So I figured I would bring that to you all and make sure that we're all on the same page. So some of the most notable changes for the Los Angeles County protocols, they're now in line with the California Department of Public Health. Masking has been sort of what we might say downgraded a little bit, where it's just kind of a general preference, but it's still recommended for those that are most vulnerable. Our quarantine is a recommended for anyone that is identified as a close contact. That it's recommended that they wear a mask when around others and test themselves as soon as possible. If negative, again in 3-5 days. Previously, they were required to wear a mask and they were required to test themselves within that time frame. Now it's a recommendation. But the most notable is in regards to isolation, and that would be for those that have tested positive. And it's changed to basically start stating that they may leave isolation after day 5, so long as they have been fever-free for 24 hours and they have no symptoms, or their symptoms are mild and improving. Where that differs is before we had to have a negative test after day 5, and then that would allow a person to leave isolation. So obviously there's been a lot of studies and more research done in regards to the contagious period of someone who has tested positive. And California Department of Public Health was the first to make the adjustment to this ability to leave isolation after day 5, regardless of a test. And Los Angeles County Department of Public Health always waits a little bit and just kind of monitors. And today they decided to go forward and actually fall in line with California. Moving on to the next topic is our certificated and classified employees of the year. And so we're pleased to say that we're doing this again this year. It's our second year. And right there is Lisa Torres and Robert Estrada, our certificated employee of the year, and Robert, our California classified employee of the year. Kind of set the bar a little high there with our first time doing it, but there is a U.S. classified employee of the year, so I guess we can shoot for that one. So, but we're pleased that we're currently in the process of taking nominations. Next week, we'll go through the nominations and select our certificated and our classified employee of the year. And then we will file the appropriate paperwork to be able to submit them for the county recognitions, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And then with a resolution that's coming up later on in the board meeting in regards to the April being a month to celebrate our public school employees volunteers, I just wanted to share some of our current volunteers. So we've actually had volunteers in various capacities this entire year. They started out more being more productive in the outside areas, and then we've slowly kind of brought them into our classrooms and helping. And some of the areas we have been in science camp, classroom tutoring, campus beautification, some computer support and training going on, and then obviously the gathering and preparing of materials. And so there's just 2 pictures from science camp where we had a couple of our parent volunteers going up as chaperones. But we've had some great parent volunteers and community volunteers in our schools for just about most of the year. And pleased to share that we've selected a date for our EMCSD service pin mixer. We're going with a new terminology this year. Why not change it up, right? So, you know, banking on the success of our holiday mixer, right? We thought let's change up our service pin recognition and make it a mixer. And right there you see some of our pictures from last year where we were still sort of doing that drive-through type approach, you know, just kind of being a little cautious. And so this year we're going to go back to a spring date where it's going to be a little warmer, hopefully, but not too hot. Do something outside where we can bring our approximately 260 employees here, along with everyone else in the district, and celebrate them, but just gather and just kind of, just hang out and enjoy each other, which we don't get enough opportunities to do so. And so those 260 employees will make up about a combined 3,800 years of service to our district. And so we're excited about that, so.
All right, so I'm going to kick off my presentation by just sharing one of my favorite groups. No offense to any other group I meet. I really enjoy my time with people, but students, oh my goodness, right? Like, if you want to know like what to do, what's happening, you just got to ask our kids and they'll break it all down. I met with 28 of our students that are part of our Student Advisory Council. And it was a rainy day. We anticipated giving them a tour of the district, so we brought the district in here instead. And they did not waste any time. Once we told them, what people were responsible for, they went straight to the source and were starting to make requests and give suggestions for how we can improve and add value to the wonderful things happening throughout the district. They had the opportunity to connect with the architect firm that we're using to build our master facility plan, Perkins Eastman, and it was just a wonderful conversation. Again, lots of opinions about what truly matters and what's really important for kids. I know that we're compiling the data that we collected, And I will be sharing that with the board. And what I'd like to do is really prepare this group to come in and meet with the board and give a presentation here as they summarize, the things that they would like to see in the district moving forward. So stay tuned, and I'm giving you lots of anticipation and fair warning. You are going to be blown away. Our next meeting is March 4th, and I've made note that aside from the wonderful things that we have scheduled for them, they're going to be meeting with the LCAP team so that they can provide input on the LCAP. We're going to give them a tour there of the Family Center, and then they're going to get a bike lesson from the bike park. And I think it's important that we bring in the Norwood project and give them an opportunity to have an opinion on how they would like to see green space evolve in our school district. So looking forward to that next Student Advisory Council meeting. This is a long slide with lots of information, but let me just give you the gist of it. California has made an investment in creating opportunities for schools to reimagine and create community schools. This is something that we started doing many, many years ago before any grant dollars were available. And obviously, the Jeff Seymour Family Center has become really just the pinnacle of this work. Interestingly, as the county started offering opportunities to other districts in the county to consider community schools, they were sending school districts to the Jeff Seymour Family Center to see the work that was taking place there and to model some of the work around the Jeff Seymour Family Center. So it's a huge accolade to the visionary work that this district has done. So there's this opportunity to access funds that the state of California is going to be setting aside, again, for the involvement of community schools. And really, the community school approach is one that integrates support services for students, that involves family and community engagement, collaborative leadership, and extended learning time and opportunities, which we can, I think, all agree this is something that's already happening at our school sites. We applied for a community school planning grant. We just received notification that we received this planning grant. And so this is some seed money, $200,000, that will allow us to bring all of our stakeholders together and create a robust application so we can apply for the community school funding. There's up to $500,000 available per school for up to 5 years. So in essence, if we did the math and we captured the maximum dollar for every school within that 5-year period, there's an opportunity for us to bring in over $20 million to the El Monte City School District. So in the coming months, we're going to bring forward all of our stakeholders to plan, again, to really evolve our community school model, because I want to emphasize this is work that we're already doing as a district. But again, this is an opportunity for us to take it to the next level and really solidify the plans that we have to support our school community. So I am excited about this because I think as we continue, really take on, we're starting to bring back some of the work that was placed on hold before the pandemic, especially the work of the equity committee that the board was really hoping to expand on. I think this is a really clear pathway for us to integrate the board's vision with some funding and some planning and action steps along the way. So an exciting time, I think, for us to really merge strategy, culture, and leadership in our school district. This last weekend, this is a little bit of an announcement here, celebratory. On Saturday, some of our students that are part of the Migrant Ed Consortium participated in LACO speech competition, and 2 of our students competed in the regionals, Angel Zarate from Gidley and Fernanda Sean Gonzalez from Scherpser School. Angel placed 2nd for the prepared speech category, and we're really proud of everything that he did, and so we're hoping to recognize both students and acknowledge their hard work and their representation of the school district and the wonderful things happening. Open house season is before us. Scherpser kicked it off last week with their open house. It was a wonderful family night, and happy to share the list of all of the open houses that will be taking place in the coming weeks. I think Cortada is this week. Yep. And then as the weeks go by, you'll see there that just there's going to be something to do every week and participate and really celebrate the work that our schools are doing. What is an open house? It's an opportunity for our communities to come together, to recognize the wonderful work that's happening in classrooms, in our spaces, learn what makes our schools special and stand out and really, define themselves. And then lastly, it's an opportunity for us to connect with our school community. So we're going to be sharing this information with our school community and just the community at large. So it's an opportunity for them to visit our schools and see the wonderful investments that are taking place. And lastly, I want to close off by just really acknowledging, I'll start off with Mr. Sollenbach. Before you this evening are 2 compensation packages for 2 of our bargaining units, as well as our management and confidential. And I know that early on when we started the conversations about compensation for the school year, this board is has always been very supportive of our school community. And I just want to acknowledge the investment that we're making towards staff and school community, because it recognizes and celebrates our collaborative efforts in achieving the goals. And so we're really proud of the compensation that we bring forward this evening for your recommendation, and look forward to continuing discussions on how we can make our district a better place to work, to support, and to contribute in. And then I did want to share that I'm finalizing the candidates for the Superintendent Staff Advisory Panel this week, and looking forward to adding that group as a group that I meet with regularly to really inform best practices, next steps, and value added for the district. Any questions?
Questions of anybody or just particular person? My one burning question is, what is the Cheech Museum? Is that Cheech and Chong? Because I'm just curious, what is that?
It's in Riverside. It's a cultural museum. It is Cheech Marin, who was
Really?
part of Cheech and
One of my
Chong.
heroes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also,
The largest collector of Chicano art. And so this is the first time that we've seen so many wonderful pieces of art from Chicano and I think Native American artists. It's a combination, but it's just a
Interesting.
tribute to
Okay.
art. And I'm going to sign up for that field trip personally.
I was going to ask, can we sign up for any of these spring break events that are going on? No.
Yes.
No, thank you so much, Cabinet. Just obviously very thorough. That's why a lot of times we don't have many questions, because you guys just do such a great job at giving us the information we need and then elaborating with all those details. So thank you.
Another thing is, I'm very jealous of what our students are getting now. I went to 14 elementary schools. None of them had any of what these kids are getting. I'm so happy for them. What great opportunities for learning for them. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to board member communications, starting with Ms. Cobian.
Thank you. I'll start just again by congratulating Clemenson. I know many of them had other things they needed to get to tonight, but just appreciate that they made the time to come here, and really glad that we could honor them. And I think it's just a tribute to the depth of the commitment they have to excellence there, just the year over year kind of recognition that they get, and we know as part of the community how great the staff and the community is there. So I'll also share, I got to enjoy the tech fair. I really always impressed with the work that's going on at our school sites. Just particularly wanted to highlight for me seeing the accessible technology that was helping our students with special needs to be able to access the internet, to be able to communicate and participate fully as other students are. And also just the student presenters. I mean, I think, our Leader in Me program has really shaped what our students see themselves as capable of. So every little booth that I went up to, it was students who were telling me about what they were sharing, what the technology was doing for them, and even got to kind of play little games with them, which was a lot of fun. I got to participate in the Read Across America week, and always enjoy being able to get back in the classroom and read to students. So that was definitely a highlight, and as well as the Parent Academy. It was great seeing so many parents across our school districts and our other neighboring school districts who are just committed to helping their students succeed, all the students in our district succeed, and for them being able to have some things that will help build their capacity to help students grow and everything like that. So all definite highlights for me, looking forward to open house. And I think just, this idea of really getting back to in-person and being able to, see the community and being able to participate in things again. So thank you.
Ms. Flores?
Thank you. Yeah, just to kind of echo what she mentioned, I do want to congratulate Clemenson School and also thank the two organizations, Trust Public Land and Active SGV, for the presentation regarding the progress that's been made at Norwood. I also did go to the Tech Fair, which was a great opportunity to see all the kids in action. They were so excited to show off their tech skills. It was a great event. And speaking of volunteers, I had the opportunity to speak with an individual who is actually a volunteer at one of the schools, and he helps out the students with typing. And so I was looking at these students and I was like, oh my gosh, I think they were third graders. And I was like, I did not learn how to type like that until I was probably like a junior in high school. So very much appreciate them and that whole experience. I also look forward to the open houses, and I will be participating at Gidley's Career Day on Wednesday. So I look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Segrist?
Yes, a couple of items. Number one, I've been asked by a number of parents, are we teaching children in school the dangers of the internet, specifically TikTok? That's one of the questions they're asking. Also, I've noted that we're not sharing with anybody that this is Irish American Heritage Month, which was declared by the U.S. Congress in 1991. The Irish American people, they produced 12 presidents, including Barack Obama, by the way, which is an interesting thing. And I did get a phone call from a rabbi in Temple City who wants to know, are we going to celebrate Jewish American Month? It'll be coming up, just to make sure we don't leave it out. Also, scholarships for children. There's one available every year. It's called the Ben Carson Scholarship, grades 4 to 11. It's $1,000, and Dr. Carson's given over, I think, 8,000 of them. And it's specific that you have to have it sent to the school, and they only allow one applicant. So I think it would help our community by letting our parents know about this. And also, I'd like to congratulate Clemenson. It's awesome to become a distinguished school because the process is difficult, but it shows the quality of what's being done there. Also, I did attend the Parent Involvement Academy, and it was impressive, the learning that takes place. And I'm so proud of what this district is offering our children, because I know people in other districts, and when I share what we do, they say, we better move to El Monte. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. All right, 3 points I have here today. Tech Fair, I was able to attend. There were many great things, but I'm going to put my top 3. I loved the fashion show. I didn't realize that they were like giving like a time frame. Like I forgot how many, like maybe 30 minutes to do that, or maybe. It wasn't something that they were working on like throughout the year, right? It was something that they had to develop right away.
It was 1 hour.
1
with the
hour.
materials that they had in front of them.
Yeah, so creative. And then the next one I love, the poem, the AI poem was really great. And then you're right, the augmented and alternative communication and how our students are utilizing different types of devices in order to communicate and participate in their education and their instruction. So that was really great to see from their switchboards. And one that I had always heard about, never seen, it was the eye gaze one. That we have students who, you're right, nonverbal and also have orthopedic impairments. And then I've heard about it. Was great to see it in person about how you can use the eye gaze device to help them communicate and again participate in their instruction. So it was a great way to show off all the things that the schools are doing and the unique things that we're doing in our district. Next thing I wanted to point out we always have various resolutions, but just one thing I wanted to share is that March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day. So it's just to highlight the importance of advocating for different inclusion opportunities for students and individuals with Down syndrome. And there's a campaign called Lots of Socks campaign. And what it is that, how we obviously have different colors, but for this specific day, they encourage you to wear like unique socks. right? So just kind of wanted to spread that. And maybe when we look at resolutions, so we always look at resolutions at our board retreat in July. So maybe that is something that we can consider looking at if we wanted to highlight as a resolution for World Down Syndrome Day. And then just the third point is the spring break opportunities. It was just so great to see how, I knew we did it for winter break and that was something new, but again, it's those things that when you're just busy on the day-to-day, you don't think about the fact that our students don't have the opportunity during spring break, right? For us, we're just happy that we get a break, right? We're just so looking forward to relaxing and doing nothing. But we forget about, it's just a great opportunity to provide those enrichment opportunities for students so that, that they're getting exposed to different things they wouldn't be exposed to. They're getting exposed to different types of activities and careers and pathways. And then obviously too, those social skills opportunities that they're not just home by themselves, because we are educating a different type of student. And we have to be intentional with the different opportunities that providing them to socialize. The parks is another way that we're creating opportunities for them to get together, to socialize and interact in person. So I'm glad and it's going to be linking to the work we're doing with our equity, and we're looking at what type of student are we cultivating here in the El Monte City School District. So I end that with going into our closed session. Okay, we are resuming open session at 6:36 p.m. We just returned from closed session where item pursuant to Government Code 4595.55.6, conference with labor negotiators was discussed. No action was taken at that time. Right, moving on to item G, which is approval of minutes. So I have the consideration of approval of minutes for the February 21st, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have item H, a public hearing. For this item, we have presentation and consideration of CSCA in its chapter 356, initial proposal to reopen negotiations with the El Monte City Schools District for the 22-23 school year. The Educational Employment Relations Act, EERA, specifically Government Code Section 3547, requires that all initial proposals of the exclusive representative of the district, which relate to matters within the scope of representation, be presented at a public meeting of the governing board. In large part, the purpose of this sunshining requirement is to inform the public about the issues to be negotiated, to afford the public a full opportunity to express their views on the issues, and for the public to know the positions of their elected representatives. CSCA in its chapter 356 has presented their initial proposals for the 22-23 reopen negotiations with the El Monte City School District. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the CSCA 356 initial proposal? Okay, we have no comments at this time. Is there a motion to adopt CSCA in its chapter 356 initial proposal for negotiations with the El Monte City School District?
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segers. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Now we'll be moving on to our action and consent agenda. Are there any items board members would like to pull at this time to vote separately?
Number 1.
One by Mr. Segrist. Right. I'll now ask for a motion for the action and consent agenda minus item 1.
I will so move.
Okay, motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Okay, now we'll review number 1. Mr. Segrist?
Yes, I have a question about the credit card. I keep getting some offers from credit card companies saying they'll give you a rebate back So it might be worthwhile to look into those, okay? Because Capital One, I just got that one. Thank you, that's all.
Is there a motion for item 1?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, Mr. Seegers, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, we're moving on to our actions section. Starting with number 1, consideration of approval to adopt a resolution for the 22-23 school year regarding April 2023 as Autism Awareness Month.
Thank you. President Mendez Garcia, Governing Board, before you is Resolution 22-23-23 proclaiming April 2023 as Autism Awareness Month. This resolution acknowledges the importance of raising awareness about autism spectrum disorder and promoting understanding and acceptance of individuals with autism spectrum disorder. It highlights the district's commitment to providing resources and support for students with ASD, and this resolution demonstrates the district's commitment to promoting inclusion, understanding, and acceptance of all students.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion for item 1 regarding Autism Awareness Month?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I would like to have us propose or consider promoting the resolutions we do in the San Gabriel Valley Tribune, just to let people see the type of resolution, because I think it kind of helps build support for the public schools, because we're under attack as always, and maybe that's one answer back. What do we do? These resolutions are very important. It shows that we care. Thank you.
Ready. Any other questions or discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, item number 2, consideration of approval to adopt resolution for the 22-23 school year proclaiming April 29th, 2023 as El Día de los Niños, celebrating young Americans.
Yes, before you is Resolution 22-23-24 proclaiming April 29th, 2023 as El Día de los Niños, or Day of the Children, celebrating young Americans. This resolution recognizes and celebrates the diversity of America's youth and their unique contributions to society. This resolution emphasizes the district's commitment to promoting cultural understanding and appreciation among students, staff, and the community, and promotes multicultural appreciation and inclusivity for all students.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for item 2 regarding El Día de los Niños?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion?
I just wonder, might we add El Día de los Niños y Niñas? Because I know some boys, they see that and they go, gee, we're important. What about the girls? Just a suggestion. Thank you.
All right. All in favor for item 2, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, for item number 3, consideration of approval to adopt resolution for the 22-23 school year proclaiming April 2023 as Public Schools Month.
Thank you. Before you is Resolution 22-23-25 proclaiming April 2023 as Public Schools Month. This resolution acknowledges the importance of public schools as an essential foundation of American democracy and a critical institution that provides high-quality education for all students, regardless of their background or ability.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion for item 4?
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Seegers. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. All right, item number 4. Consideration of approval to adopt resolution for the 22-23 school year, number 26, proclaiming April 17th to the 21st, 2023 as Public School Volunteer Week.
Thank you. Before you is Resolution 22-23-26, proclaiming April 17th through the 21st, 2023 as Public Schools Volunteer Week. This resolution acknowledges the invaluable contributions of our volunteers who support public schools in various ways, including providing mentorship, tutoring, and advocating for education. And it emphasizes our commitment to recognizing and celebrating the contributions of volunteers and their impact on students, educators, and the community.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for item 4?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
It was Flores.
Oh my
I'll
God.
second that.
This is why I always check. Sorry, we have a first by Ms. Flores and then a second by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Segrist. Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Item number 5, consideration of approval of purchase orders.
Thank you. Before you is the purchase order report for the month of February. On this purchase order report, we have 236 purchase orders totaling $687,000. 2 purchase orders to highlight, one for $100,000 with data impressions for the purchase of some new servers that we discussed earlier in the cabinet reports, and another one for a little over $100,000 with engineering is elementary, engineering supplies for a summer programming that we will be sharing with the students over the summer.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. Okay, do we have a motion for item 5 on approval of purchase orders?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Flores. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have item 6 that's already being displayed. Consideration of approval of the 22-23 second interim financial report.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Margaret Lamb, our Director of Fiscal Services, to provide the board an update on the second interim financial report.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Garcia, members of the cabinet, and members of the public. Tonight, I'll be presenting an overview of the district's 22-23 second interim. Before we go into the details, this is just a review of where we are in the budget cycle. So last December, we presented and the board certified the first interim, which we submitted to the Los Angeles County of Education. And then in January, we submitted the 21-22 audit report for the board. So that finally closes the 21-22 officially. And also in January, the governor releases the budget proposal for the 23-24 budget cycle, which some of which is incorporated in the 22-23 second interim that's before the board tonight. And then in May and June, we'll be coming up to board for some of the revisions that are going to be happening as the budget is a work in progress. Okay, so why do we do the interim reports? As a result of AB 1200, which was created to ensure that the district is adequately prepared to meet its financial obligation, not just for the current year, but for the 2 succeeding years as well. The district is required to certify its financial condition 2 times a year. And some of those certifications could be positive, qualified, or negative. Today, the second interim is before the board, and we're recommending a positive certification. Just on a side note, AB 1200 is also the law that pertains to some of the collective bargaining agreements that would be before the board tonight. It requires a public disclosure and certification, not just by from the CBO or the chief business officer, and also from the superintendent, that we could afford those agreements. So the second interim, in details, we have over a total revenue of 226.5 and an expenditure of 195 million, with a projected surplus of 31.4 million when we close the books. 20 or almost 21 million of that is coming from the general fund, and 2.5 is coming from the cafeteria fund, where we also submit some of our spending plan to the state, because for cafeteria fund, we're required to spend it down and not hold the funding. And then another big what we call surplus or balances that you might see is the building fund, which is for our bond program, which we issued. We just issued recently, so that's why there's still a balance, and we're anticipating that it would eventually go down as we adopt the facilities master plan. So let me go into details. really for the first to the second interim, nothing much has changed. We have LCFF revenue at 105.4 million. This one is slightly down, mainly because of the supplemental and concentration unduplicated count percentage that we have for this year, which I would go into more detail later. For the federal program, a majority of it continues to be our ESSER funding, which is a one-time resource. That one is slightly went down because of the timing of the spending. It's a deferred type, which means we could only recognize revenue when we spend it, and we're anticipating that we won't spend as much as we were anticipating in first interim, and that's why it's going to be showing up in our 23-24 revenue estimates. For the state revenue, it continues to be at around 23.5% or at 50.8. We actually saw a drop in state revenue for the arts and music and instructional material grant of around 34%. That's around 1.6 million, but that is partially offset by our recognition of the additional transportation revenue, which we recognize at around 450. This is the 60. It used to be that the transportation revenue that we get is only from LCFF, which is around 800,000, but we spent about 2.6 million of transportation in expenditure, and the state is now, thankfully, is going to try to fund up to 60% of our expending. So 60% of 2.6 less the add-on is about 455,000. And this is also why we would have a transportation plan that is before the board tonight after the second interim item.
And just a quick comment on that for the board's recognition. Typically, LCFF makes up about 85 to 90% of our district's funds. And as you can see here, it's probably accounting for about 50% of the funds, mostly because you have a huge infusion of federal and state funds that come in. It was historic investment over the past few years of federal and state one-time funds. Most of that will drop off as we move into next year and beyond, with the exception of the ELOP that's supposed to be ongoing funding. And things will normalize back to LCFF being the lion's share of our revenue, coming in at around 80 to 90% of the overall fund. So we're at a time now where typically we don't really spend too much time talking federal and state funds because it was an immaterial amount in the broader budget. But the past year or two, it's been making up a more and more significant amount, and that will unfortunately dissipate over the next few years unless the federal government, state government continue to infuse more funding into education.
Mm-hmm. Aside from the transportation, what partially offset the 1.6 drop in the arts and music grant is the community school implementation grant that we just received of about 200,000, and we also receive an additional almost 600,000 for the universal pre-K implementation. That's for 22-23. Remember, we have about almost 300,000 for UPK implementation for 21-22. So that brings the UPK total to about 800,000. Oops, sorry. And then the local revenue remains stable. In the next slide, we have the second interim. Now we're focusing on the general fund. Unrestricted accounts for 35% of the total expenditure, while 65% is the restricted. Normally, in a normal year, without any of the one-time funding, you should see unrestricted funding because that's where a bulk of our money comes from. Having a bigger share in the expenditure. But because of the one-time funding nature of some of our funding sources, you would see a lot of expending in the restricted side. But the salaries and benefit continues to account for majority of our expenditure. And then we have some contracted services that is slightly higher than normal. And this is mostly because of some of our ELOP contracts that we have that is bumping up some of our 5,000 objects. And then in the next slide, you have the multi-year projection, which shows not only the 22-23, but also the 23-24, and 24-25, where we see our LCFF revenue dropping. This is mainly because of the enrollment decline. There's a slight increase from 22-23 to 23-24 for LCFF, and this is not because we're getting more kids, but because we have a 8.13% COLA. So it masks the enrollment decline. But with COLA going down, as anticipated to go down in the 24-25 year and the next few years, you would see a greater impact of enrollment decline to our revenues. Our expenditure remains constant for 23-24. In 24-25, we see a dip. This is because as some of our one-time money are disappearing, we anticipate that those expenditures associated with the one-time resources also drops. And what we do see is that we have an estimated restricted reserve of 5.2, continuing on to 3.3, which technically meets the statutory requirement of 3% for the district. But in the last 2021, the normal elementary school district has a reserve of 26.01. This one is just a breakdown of how we get our LCFF or local control funding formula revenue. So we have our base grant and our supplemental and concentration grants. What you do see here are some of the add-on. What's big in the governor's January budget is the equity multiplier. Unfortunately, the district, even if we do have a slightly higher unduplicated count, does not qualify for the equity multiplier because it looks at it school by school, and it only looks at it by the targeted student, not the full free and reduced, but only the low income. And most of all of our school doesn't qualify or doesn't get the 90% or doesn't go through the 90% threshold. So this one is just a breakdown of how we get our LCFF funding. Most of it is in education protection. No, not most of it. It's broken out by state aid, education protection account, and local property taxes. As if local property taxes suddenly drop, then the state aid portion would go up. So our total entitlement would not change. It's just how we would get the money. It would, break it out, and state aid would cover most of it. So if your property taxes goes down, that means the state is on the hook for more money. Then that means the budget crunch on their side would be greater as well. And this is a further breakdown of how we get our LCFF, the base grant, the supplemental, and concentration. We do get a class size, K3 class size add-on of around 3.1, which is not enough. We spend around 6 to 7 million in order to meet the 24:1 class size. And then we also have the TK add-on that the governor added last year. We're getting 340. Again, not to push the point, but it's also not enough. I think we spent around almost 700,000 to meet the class size requirement of 12:1 for our existing, I think 7 classes of TK. So, So the next one is the enrollment trend. We're continuing to project the enrollment trend. This one did not change from our first interim, but the district is actually engaged a third party as part of its facilities master plan to actually look at the district enrollment, so that a third party could verify what our enrollment numbers should be, and they would do a longer term projection. So I anticipate that this one, it would change slightly higher, slightly. I don't know whether it's better or not, but it might change slightly when we go to board for the June 2023-24 budget.
And as part of the contracts board item, the board did approve a contract with Schoolworks. It was about $15,000 to pay an independent third-party demographer to provide 10-year enrollment projections. So most likely they're going to produce the same numbers as we are, but they're going to look a little further out into the future. So While this slide looks back 10 years, we're going to have some information looking out to 2032 or so to see what that looks like. Hopefully, we don't lose another 2,000 to 3,000 kids, but the way the birth rates are trending, and it's very likely that when we get that information and we present it to the board, our numbers are going to look very different as we approach the latter part of this decade.
So the next slide shows the unduplicated student percentage. Every 4 years, the district will have to have a LCFF base year. 22-23 is the LCFF base year for the district. So in the first interim, we were anticipating closely to around 88%. We have the final number, and we submitted it. We submitted it to the state, and we're coming up at 87.07 as our new base year. Fortunately, because of the 3-year rolling average, it does not impact much the current revenue. So in the current revenue, we're still using the 3-year rolling average of 91%. But because of the drop from 92 to 87, we should see a consistent or continuous drop in the next 2 years until we reach the 3rd year, which would show a 3-year rolling average of around 87%. So that would impact our supplemental and concentration grant, and that impacts also our LCAP process, because the supplemental and concentration grant money is the amount that drives how much we could invest in our LCAP priorities. So other planning factors, these are the salary increases across the years. Though the 22-23, what's before the board tonight is a salary increase of 10% and 2%, and employee contribution to health insurance of 15,068. This has not been reflected in the second interim projection as of yet, just because of the timing. We just finished the negotiations and we did the AB 1200, so we did not have the chance to actually update the second interim. We would be going back to board as part of our estimated actual and a budget revision as required by LECO. And then some of the other planning factors are the funded COLA. So we have a 8.13% COLA for 23-24. This one is a significant increase from a 5.34% COLA, but the 24-25 dropped from 4.02 to 3.54. And then your average UPP is shown also, like this, the unduplicated count that I was referring to in the previous slide. We also see basically a stable CalSTRS contribution rate of 19.1. For CalPERS contribution rate, this one actually increased from the first interim to our second interim, from 20 to 27% and 28.1% in 24-25. This for CalPERS, normally the rates are increased by the CalPERS board and is separate from the legislature. Unlike CalSTRS, where it requires an act of legislature to actually change the rates, for CalPERS, it's based off of the CalPERS board, and the board actually determine the rate using whatever investment results that they have for the year. And then we have step and column and some of the adjustments for enrollment decline that we factored in. So what's in the January governor proposed budget? Just to do a review, we have the LCFF cost of living COLA that is proposed at 8.13% for 23-24. The governor did propose a LCFF equity multiplier for schools with 90% of students designated as low income, but EMCSD did not qualify. The Arts and Music and Instructional Material Discretionary Block Grant is reduced by 34%, which is about 1.6 million for us. The budget continues for Expanded Learning Opportunity Program and Transitional Kindergarten. There's Also, but just to be cautious, there's a lot of uncertainty in the 23-24 state budget proposal. Not just because of things changing, but mainly because the revenue numbers that they're using, as I think Mr. Herrera have mentioned, it's already down at 3 billion as of the last Department of Finance report, and the Legislative Analyst Office is anticipating that it's going to be 5 million. And then to cap it off, because of the tax deadline, it used to be that in May, we have by May revise, we have solid revenue numbers because of the April 15 deadline. But because of the postponement from May 15 now to October 15 of the tax deadline, it would be very hard for the state to actually anticipate what the revenue numbers is. And it's really dependent on the governor when they do their budget negotiations, as we call it, what number to use for revenue, and that impacts what they could give to education funding. And also it impacts Prop 98 funding as well, what's available for us actually. So the next step, the budget, we're asking the board to certify the 22-23 second interim report, and then around first week of May, or the May revise comes out, and then in June, the 23-24 local accountability plan and the budget is presented to the board. So that ends my presentation. If you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you. I do have a question. Thank you for this presentation. So some of the one-time funding, if I understood correctly, will actually still show up in next year's budget since it is deferred revenue?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Right. Thank you. Thank you again. Always a lot of numbers, and you do so well explaining it all to us. All right. Do we have a motion on the second interim financial report?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Our next item, item 7, consideration of approval of transportation plan.
Thank you. So this is something new that the board is going to be approving this year and actually every year going forward. As you heard Ms. Lam share about increased funding for homes to school transportation, at our last board meeting, we heard from our transportation manager, Mr. Tedesco, give an update on our transportation program. By April 1st of each year, this is the first year that goes into effect, the board has to approve a transportation plan that describes the transportation services that we offer to the students in the El Monte City School District. Before you use a transportation plan, that must be approved by April 1st.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions about the transportation plan?
I just kind of had a general question of if we're continuing to try to work with the city of El Monte. I know sometimes there's an opportunity for the city to provide transportation to city sites and things like that. I know that's a little bit independent of this, but I was just kind of curious about that.
That is something that actually, as we, they gave us some flexibilities in this first year as we developed our transportation plan, but going forward, we are required to reach out to transit agencies and develop programs and plans to make sure that we're offering and eliminating as much barriers as possible to anybody that would request that. So we're looking into developing that partnership, whether it's a yellow school bus that provides a transportation or some other form of transportation. We're looking at seeing how we can incorporate that into our transportation plan. And we're also looking at how the transportation plan can be aligned better into our LCAP process. So, since we're already going through that process to get the input from stakeholders, that's something that we're going to look at more closely.
Thank you. And I just also wanted to say I appreciate that there's the inclusion of parent transportation sometimes, because I know that can often be a big issue if we have a major event at one location and parents don't always have easy access. So I do appreciate that that's included as well.
No, I also appreciate there's just a lot of information that's presented here that's important for the community to know, the board to know, and also just answer specific questions. I know that kind of comes up a lot, like, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, the reason behind it. And as we're getting funding covered, not all of it, but we're getting more coverage from the state, I understand why they're like, okay, having this plan in place is so important for that transparency.
And I'll move to approve the item.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Right. Number 8, we have a consideration of approval to adopt resolution for the 22-23 school year, number 28, designating specific material, product, or service for procurement.
This resolution is related to the upcoming modernization project at Cortada School. We shared a little bit about this at our last board meeting and our cabinet updates, and the board approved a piggyback agreement to procure the 4 modular classrooms. In the next few days, we're going to be releasing an RFP to engage with a general contractor to come in and demolish the portables and lay the foundation, get the playground ready for the construction of the new modular classrooms. And what this resolution allows is the district flexibility to designate specific materials, products, or services in its bid for the purpose, for various reasons, right? The reason that we're selecting is so that certain product match with other products currently in use throughout the district. As an example, one of the items that we put on there is door hardware, fire alarm system, right? We don't want one campus or a portion of a campus to have different door hardware or a fire alarm system than the rest of the school district does, right? So there's some operational considerations that we put into, that we need to consider. So by approving this resolution, we're able to refer back to this when we go out to bid. If the contractor attempts to change out a product and give us a like-for-like change out, we have the discretion to say that is not in alignment with the district standards. And so on the resolution, we've identified some areas, some products, specifically door hardware, thermostats, ceiling speakers, and I believe we also have a fire alarm system as well. So we have that consistency across the districts.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this item, number 8?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cobiana. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion at this time? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have consideration of approval of resolution number for the 22-23 school year, number 27, increased salary schedules of unrepresented employees commensurate with bargaining unit members.
Thank you, President Mendez Garcia. Before you, for your consideration, is Resolution 22-23-27, and the reason why it's a resolution because it impacts the unrepresented employees, and therefore any increases to any salary schedules must come forward through a resolution and board approval. We're pleased to bring this as it's in line with the other 2 agreements that you'll be considering in a few minutes. In that all salary schedules that impact unrepresented employees will be increased by 10%, a 2% one-time off-schedule payment, an increase in the district's contribution to annual benefits to $15,068. And then finally, we noted on there that we had to make some adjustments to some of the work calendars due to the recognition of Juneteenth holiday. It does not impact the pay or the number of days worked for any employees. It just recognizes that because we are bringing updated salary schedules, therefore we had to bring updated work calendars for this group.
Thank you. All right, so I move to approve item number 9. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segaris. Any questions or discussion? No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, we have item 10, consideration of approval of collective bargaining settlement between EMETA and Almani City School District effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, accompanied with AB 1200 documentation.
Thank you. For your consideration of approval is the tentative agreements regarding salary and benefits with the El Monte Elementary Teachers Association. Similar to what was just approved for unrepresented, it's a 10% increase to all of the salary schedules across the board. It's also a 2% one-time payment based on their current annual salary for all employees that are employed at the date of the assignment of the tentative agreement. Health and welfare increase to $15,068. And then a temporary increase to the substitute unavailability for teachers that when they cover a class by either giving up their prep period or by taking additional students from a class where we do not have enough substitute on a certain day. We have a contractually agreed upon rate, and so just as we did last year, for just this year, we're agreeing to an increase in that amount just to kind of offset some of that.
I move to approve item number 10. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Cobian. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item 11, consideration of approval of collective bargaining settlement between the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 10 and Amani City School District effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, accompanied with AB 1200 documentation.
Thank you. For your consideration of approval is the tentative agreement between CSEA and its Chapter 10, which is our classified employees in the district. Similar to the previous agreements, the tentative agreement, if approved, will add a 10% increase to all salary schedules that impact our classified employees, an increase in health and welfare, I apologize, a 2% off schedule or $1,300, whichever is greater. And so the reason behind that is similar to what we did last year. When you look at our classified employees and you look at what 2% means to a supervision assistant or maybe a nutrition services supervisor, that 2% equates to, $300 maybe, and that's probably a higher estimate. So when we were working on this with our CSEA group through negotiations, we were really excited that we can do this type of agreement to ensure that all of our employees in the Chapter 10 receive a decent 2% off schedule or something equivalent to. So it's 2% off schedule of their annual salary or $1,300, whichever is greater. An increase to our 4-hour and over employees of the district annual contribution to $15,068, just as we have done with our other groups. But also looking at our employees that work less than 4 hours, we've had a contractual agreement to allow for $35 a month, which doesn't cover very much. And so we're excited to come to an agreement where that will increase to $1,000 annually, which allows every employee that is under 4 hours the opportunity to at least get vision and dental and life in this coming year. And I think that was it. Those were all of them.
All right. Okay, I have a motion for item 11. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Now we're going to be moving on to our board policy updates. At our last meeting, we had approval of a first reading, and now we're going to be going through second reading for the approval. And we have 20 to go through. Okay. Starting with item 1, regarding consideration of approval second reading for revised board policy and administrative regulation regarding comprehensive local plan for special education. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I would recommend that all of these items be placed into Word and use text-to-speech and have them played back. It would save you a lot of wear and tear on your voice. It's possible to do that.
I'm going to try to whisper.
Just a suggestion. We care.
Maybe skipping numbers, reading numbers. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, item 2, consideration of approval of the second reading of revised board policy and administrative regulation regarding comprehensive safety plans. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segrist. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next, item 3, consideration of approval of second reading revised board policy and administrative regulation regarding local control and accountability plan. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Consideration of approval of the second reading of revised board policy and administrative regulation regarding transportation fees. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Item 5, consideration of approval of second reading revised board policy and administrative regulation on fees and charges. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Number 6, consideration of approval of second reading revised board policy and administrative regulation on financial reports and accountability. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segrist. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Number 7, consideration of approval of second reading of revised board policy and administrative regulation on campus security. I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Number 8, consideration of approval of second reading revised administrative regulation on bomb threats. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segrist. Are there any questions or discussion?
Only a comment. It's so sad that we have to deal with these things along with everything else, and it is so sad that that's the world our children are living in. Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. The motion carries 4-0. Consideration of approval of the second reading on revised board policy on transportation. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Consideration of approval of the second reading on revised board policy on inter-district attendance. I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Okay, moving on to number 10. Consideration of approval of the second reading, we did 10, sorry. This is why I looked up. 11. Okay, number 11. Consideration of approval of the second reading of revised board policy on weapons and dangerous instruments. I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. 12, consideration of approval of second reading on health examinations. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. We have consideration of approval of second reading on health examinations. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, all in,
I am so
Is
sorry,
it?
Ms.
I wasn't
Mendez.
on. Thank you.
Let me just correct that. I believe that is a duplicate item
okay.
there. Edna, is that correct?
Yeah, we're on number 13.
All right, so if we can all just scratch out number 13.
Number 13, okay.
We can leave it as long as if they make the correction verbally.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just
Yes.
safety.
Yes.
Okay, so item 13, it's on consideration of approval, the second reading of revised board policy regarding safety.
I'll second.
Okay, second, I move to approve.
I'll second.
And second by Ms. Cobian. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0 regarding safety. Okay, now we're on number 14, consideration of approval of second reading regarding Safe Routes to School program. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. 15, consideration of approval of second reading regarding before and after-school programs. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Segrist. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. 16, consideration of approval of second reading regarding preschool early childhood education. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Item 17, consideration of approval of second reading regarding identification and evaluation of individuals for special education. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cobian. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. 18, consideration of approval of second reading and revised board bylaw 9220 on governing board elections. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Segrist. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Consideration approval of second reading of revised board bylaw 9223 on filling vacancies. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Segrist. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. And last one, item 20, consideration of approval of second reading revised board bylaw 9323 on meeting conduct. I move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Flores. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Good job, team.
Well, congratulations to you as well. And once again, just wanted to express my deepest gratitude to the board. It's a lot of reading, but just staying on top of our board policies is really the best approach. So thank you.
Because people do search it.
Yes.
It is very important. Yes, I do agree.
And they provide guidance, and we're all very clear and on the same page about, you know, what our protocols and the procedures that are spelled out in the administrative regulations and policies are there for all to see.
Yes, very important. Okay, moving on to our discussion session. Starting with item 1, we have a governance handbook update, which is a follow-up when we look at our governance handbook annually, usually around, we always kind of committed at the start of the year and then at our board retreat, depending on the need, and we saw that we wanted to add additional language regarding professional development.
Yes, and so from my understanding, the board had indicated in a previous conversation that they felt really strongly about the board's professional development. The conferences that the board has previously agreed to participating in and allowing others to attend is the annual educational conference that CSBA provides, as well as the Masters in Governance opportunity. It's a series of workshops around all things school district, and you get a certificate at the end. There was also, in years past, CSBA hosted Legislative Week in person, and so there was a commitment to fly to Sacramento and be a part of that day. And so that's still listed there, even though I think, from my understanding, they've gotten more of a turnout, more board members participating virtually. So we'll see if there's ever a hybrid or if they just keep it virtual. And then lastly, NALEO was also a conference that's been highlighted by this board as an opportunity for the board to further expand their development as board members. And so the language that was added as a result of the conversation that the board had was just information there on how to bring forward additional requests for different conferences that are not listed there. And so the writing, or what we can add to the governance handbook would say, if a board member would like to attend an additional professional development training on behalf of the district, the request will be received by board president and discussed for possible approval at an upcoming board meeting.
I think that's good. I think it just clarifies for us and for new board members, just the processes that we have.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Any other questions?
Okay.
So yeah, so we're all in agreement with adding that to our governance handbook. Yeah, I agree. That's just something that comes up, and as we have new board members, these little things come up, which is why we're committed to reviewing our governance handbook. continuously. All right, our next item of discussion is the book follow-up on Miseducated by Brandon P. Fleming.
Well, I know that Mr. Fleming was a very dynamic speaker at the last CSBA conference, and I took the liberty of purchasing the book because I think I had different conversations with board members that were just really inspired by Mr. Fleming. And so this is an opportunity for the board to do a book study. So I think if you're comfortable, we can set a date for, to give the board ample time to read the book. It's not a race, and so, we want to make sure that you have plenty of time, you have the opportunity to really comb through the book, and then maybe identify a future board meeting where we can add it to the agenda as a possible discussion, highlighting some of the benefits or some of the things that really resonate with board members regarding the book. And then I think we can then discuss if there's an opportunity to do even more after the fact.
I was just opening up my notes, just for looking at future meetings. But yeah, I know we have 2 meetings in June, because then after that is our board retreat. I know that gets pretty packed. So I don't know if maybe June would be a good one. We can maybe add it on to one of our June meetings. Or if we, from now until then, if we end up having another study session, is there a study session coming up? Not yet scheduled, right?
It's not yet scheduled, but there is an opportunity to discuss bringing in the architect firm to share the final master facility plan with the board. And I think, I'd like to get the board's opinion on whether we want to create a standalone meeting or add it as a discussion item or an item of interest, for a future meeting.
I think I'd like a separate meeting for that one, just because I know it'll, we want to make sure that we're focused on that and not just going through some routine items. I was also thinking about for the book, maybe what we could do is, over the next month or two, start to read through it, and maybe what we could share questions or key points that we notice with Dr. Garcia, and then kind of, because I think we'll need to shape what a discussion looks like around it, with the goal of either, having a separate meeting to discuss that, or maybe we tack it on with our board retreat or something like that. So I think there's kind of stages of going through the book also.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if we want to also tack it on. I know the equity committee, I don't know if that's something that if we end up having a study session that we decide to, once the equity committee meets, it could be something that we tag it on to a study session where it's both the book study and then kind of into equity, because you're right, like pairing it with the facilities plan wouldn't be ideal.
It would be different.
So I think we're open to definitely, I'm going to say committed to us reading the book right now, and then maybe after equity committee meets, seeing like, okay, after they kind of discuss what some next action steps could be, then if we do look at a study session that we're doing for equity, adding that discussion on the book.
Yeah, I like that.
That sounds
idea.
good.
Okay. I already started reading it, no pressure. Who else?
Yeah, I did too. I'm on chapter 5.
Okay, whatever. I think
a great
I'm on-
book.
Maybe I'm on
I
6,
love
I
it.
don't know, but yeah. Right. So we're all committed to reading it, and then we'll be keeping that in mind, and I'll write that as a follow-up, that once we kind of look at what a possible next study session for equity can be, we'll tag that on, and thinking about how we would kind of incorporate that. And maybe online, there's already discussion questions, right? I know sometimes books already have them.
Yeah, there are, and actually, I think we're not the only board that's doing this. I know of other groups that are engaging in a book study, so I'm happy to share some other models, a study guide that's out there for the book. Yep, can definitely push out those resources.
All right, so I'll write note of that on my follow-up notes. Okay, next is number 3, board subcommittee updates. No, did I miss something? Yeah.
Yes, so as a follow-up, we have 2 subcommittees. We have the Equity Subcommittee. We'll be meeting later this week to embark on the subcommittee with Mrs. Flores, who just joined the subcommittee. And on the Legislative Advocacy Committee, Mrs. Cobian and Mrs. Mendez Garcia participated, and we recently met. And so as a result of our meeting, we highlighted some of the opportunity to participate at the CSBA Legislative Week. Those appointments begin tomorrow virtually. I believe our district is given the opportunity to meet with Assemblymember Calderon, Assemblymember Rubio, Senator Rubio, and Assemblymember Fong. And I think there was a little snafu with Portantino, but we'll see if anything comes from that. All that to say that the agenda for CSBA this year, they're asking board members to support or to really emphasize the importance of fully funding the LCFF Cost of Living Adjustment, COLA, without cuts to the arts and music and instructional materials discretionary block grant. And so some examples that are relevant to the El Monte City School District, we need the COLA to be fully funded. Obviously, we know that inflation is here. It's been dormant for many years, and so there was always a little bit of a pushback to fund COLAs fully. But if there's ever been a time for our legislators to really fund the COLA, it is now. We need the COLA funded to meet our operating costs as well as the expenses that, we're projecting in the years to come. Cutting the arts and music or even ELOP programs, while they might not appear to impact, the instructional programs at school, I think we would all agree that we disagree wholeheartedly. And we know that when you impact programs such as art and music, it's a disadvantage. It impacts economically disadvantaged students and students of color more so. And lastly, one-time funding was essential for survival during the pandemic. We were able to use a lot of our one-time funding to really meet the needs, and my goodness, they were very flexible throughout the 3 years. And obviously, opening schools and creating plans to adjust for the lost instructional time was really important with all that one-time money. However, ongoing investments are going to be necessary to stabilize public education, and so we want to remind our legislators of the importance of not just one-time money, but to fully fund the COLA so that we can continue planning for the future. The second highlight that CSBA is encouraging board members to speak on is to remain focused on sustaining programs. And so we want to remind legislators, and I think Mr. Herrera did a wonderful job of highlighting all the new bills that are before this group of politicians. And so we want to make sure that as they're considering adopting new bills and allocating funds, that they give school districts the opportunity to sustain what we currently have in place. Yes. And so I just want to, again, highlight that in the El Monte City School District, we began our conversations around equity and access, which have been instrumental, especially during the pandemic, for us, and allocating funds that we think are well spent when we invest in opportunities and experiences for kids. Some of the monies that we've received, we've been able to send, as you know, you've heard us talk about this, but outdoor science camp for all students. We have wonderful impact teachers, formerly intervention teachers, but we renamed them because they're truly making a significant impact in our educational day. We've added counselors, social workers, music teachers. We continue to support art lead teachers, technology lead teachers. We have a wonderful health staff that's ready and prepared to meet the needs of our students. The safety procedures and protocols that we added during COVID are also things that we want to sustain moving forward. And then, of course, one of our foundational programs is Universal Meals for All Kids. And so while the list is very extensive, I think these are some examples that, as board members, you can use to really to convince and advocate our legislators that as they're considering many things, we need the funding to sustain the current programs that we have because they truly have become best practices in the El Monte City School District, and it really meets the needs of communities at this moment in time.
Thank you for that. Now, this will be really helpful as we're meeting with our legislators, just really connecting it to specifically the why and why we're advocating from the El Monte City School District. Any questions from the board on that? Okay. And we know the Equity Committee is going to be meeting. All right, then the next thing is just, are there any future discussion items that board members would like to add to a future agenda or study session? Okay. All right, none at this time. So then we will be adjourning tonight's meeting at 7:39 PM. Thank you, everyone who stayed after for this meeting. Thank you.
And I would like to thank you for having such a strong voice to read all of those policies.
Just trying to whisper.
No.